About a month ago, I wanted to make a horror game, and I've always loved exploring abandoned places. The most fascinating abandoned place I've ever heard of are the Paris catacombs, which is a confusing tunnel system beneath, well, Paris that stretches for over 280 kilometers, or that's 2.9 million hamburgers for you Americans, where millions were buried. There are stories of people being lost down there, and I want to create a similar environment where you encounter cults, hallucinations, and, Bob. The bread and butter of wanting to shit your pants while playing a horror game is number 1, a big unknown, and number 2, a threat. A lot of games make an unknown through their environment. Subnautica puts you in vast, deep oceans. The Forest has, well, a forest, and some other indie games just give you a $3 Temu flashlight that barely works, so you barely have any perception of what's going on around you. Now, I'm going to create the feeling of a big unknown through confusing, long tunnels. Initially, I looked at Sketchfab for free tunnel models, which has these 3D scans that people took with their phone. And some parts of these look alright, but they have a lot of issues, like these holes or parts that look like someone just intentionally went in here with the smear tool in Photoshop. To see if this catacomb idea was worth pursuing at all, I wanted to get a map working as quickly as possible to test it out. So I bought a cave asset and found some more art on Sketchfab. Our art. And this looked pretty darn cool, except for the fact that it's barely running at like 20 FPS. And this is just a walking simulator. Now my PC is pretty clapped. It's got an RTX 3050 mobile, which is like a nerfed version of the cheapest sort of new desktop GPU, but it's still a gaming PC and this just isn't great. This abomination of performance could be due to all the effects I'm using, like real-time ray tracing, real-time lighting, and other stuff that I don't know if it's necessary. But before I start turning down settings which make stuff look worse in this video, I wanted to do a pretty basic optimization that almost all modern games use. See, a lot of these props are 3D scans, which means that they have hundreds of thousands of triangles, which isn't a problem until you do this. Now your GPU is doing a lot of work, and you can barely even see all the details on some of these because of how far away these props are. This is where something called level of details come in, and I use this tool to auto-generate them. Notice any difference? Yes? Well, you're a fucking liar, because I didn't enable the system yet. Here it is side by side, and on the right it runs a lot better. Now some games go even crazier by replacing the entire model with a literal PNG at faraway distances, but I can't be bothered to do that right now, so let's keep going. The next thing I worked on was sound design. Now this is the most important part of any horror game. Don't believe me? Well, now you do. I added this cave ambience, some sounds to these cockroaches, obnoxiously loud footsteps to make you uneasy. I tried music, but yeah, it just broke the tension. And some other custom systems which I'll show off in a bit. The next thing we need is some more variation in tunnels, and I knew I would eventually have to bite the bullet and make some of these environments myself in Blender, because I'm going to go into serious debt if I make this game by buying 3D assets. So I watched a bunch of exploration videos and gathered a huge Google Docs full of reference images to use. I made a couple of different kinds of tunnels based on real images, with modular parts that I can reuse, like junctions and stairs, as well as this room, which looks super cool. Now when you're exploring, one of the scariest things to come across are other people. So I added 3D scans of mattresses, trash bags, other bags, and bugs to indicate to you that there were people down where you are at some point in the past. Could be a day ago, could be a month ago, who knows. I also got this pack of gore, which I'm not going to show on YouTube, but this looked so awesome. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we need some kind of threat. A couple games I've seen on YouTube use spiders, which I'm not really too scared of, thanks to living in Australia. But what I am afraid of are giant black hairy tarantulas, which are ironically generally less dangerous than spiders, and sometimes pets for some reason, but you do you, I guess. Now, to test out my idea, I had this spider crab model laying around, which I'm aware is not a tarantula, or not even a spider for that matter, but I'll fix that later on. Now, to make this guy walk around, we need to use something called inverse kinematics for his legs, which I'm not going to bore you with the explanation of. Now, here's how that went. Now, after all this struggling, I realized that most of the time our spider would need to go through tunnels, which were too narrow for the spider, so I added some logic to make the legs automatically adjust to the width of the tunnel, which looks fine for wide tunnels, but looks absolutely horrible for narrow tunnels. And pretty much all the tunnels in this game are narrow tunnels. And by this point, I hadn't even implemented stuff like following the player, walking upside down or on walls, or real spider behavior, like just walking in random directions or stopping for no reason. So instead, I got the spider game asset, and this looked so much better, aside from some bugs like the tarantula occasionally glitching out of the map, and walking on the outside of the map, which, I mean, fair enough, I wouldn't want to stay inside of these tunnels either. I made our tarantula make some noises, which are actually just pitched down animal footsteps. I fixed some bugs, like it turning into a disco spider whenever it walked through graffiti. Wow. And this is pretty cool, but it just wasn't scary. So we need another monster.
Screw you! You're fired!
And I found this snake thing. It looks like something you'd see in the dark when you start hallucinating, and I'm just imagining like 10 of these slithering out of corners, so I got to work recreating it. And this, my friend, is why I ended up as a programmer and not a 3D modeler working at Bethesda. Actually, maybe I could have landed a job there based on some things I heard. Now, I imagined originally I could just add a fur on top and it would just look good, but no, that was not the case. And I was feeling pretty bummed out, and reconsidering even working on this project. Would I forever be stuck to making shitty bean FPS games on Steam? Of course not. As Nick A30 always told me, never back down.
Never give up!
That's right! This was the game plan. I scoured Sketchfab for hours, and I found the most disgusting, horrific creature I have seen in my life. Worse than the photos of those fish you see from the bottom of the ocean. Introducing Bob. Now, to make him work in-game, we need some animations. So I went to mixamo.com, and we have the choice between the scary and the regular zombie animation pack. I think you know which one I chose, and it came with this animation of it walking on the floor and eating something, and I don't know, I'm going to do something with that, but first let's get Bob in-game and walking around. I set up a basic animation system with a wake-up animation, and then a blend between idle, walking, and running, and then I gave him consciousness, programmed by the most advanced AI models of our time, GPT-5. I'm just kidding, I just made Bob follow you. Wait, is he actually? Or... oh shit.
I'm blind in my left eye, and 43% blind in my...
And then I gave Bob glowing red eyes, because everyone knows that it's not evil if it doesn't have red eyes. Yeah, you think you're so tough, what the fuck are you gonna do now, huh? Swing at me. Now, the logical next step would be to make Bob actually attack you and look scary. Let's add jiggle physics to his tongue. Now, to make the tongue wobble, we're going to need to give it some bones to articulate it, and then put springs in between the bones. Am I making absolutely no sense right now, and do I sound completely crazy? Yes. But if you were a Unity developer, I would make perfect sense to you, so I'm not elaborating. At first, I tried to use the advanced spring component so I could have ultimate tongue articulation every time our monster moves his head, but eventually after 2 hours of work...
I like to make walks in the morning time, yeah, with my legs.
I couldn't figure out how to stop the tongue from just falling out of his mouth. I was gobsmacked. So with the advanced component not working, I tried to use the basic spring. My two neurons brain blasted in unison for the first time in, I don't know. But eventually I got it working, and oh boy was it worth it. It looks like a rabid dog just salivating at the thought of biting you. Speaking of salivating, I added that. Check this out. Yes! But this still isn't scary. I mean, this guy is just straight up Fortnite emoting right now. I cannot make this shit up. I did not program this. So to make him more scary, I need him to catch you by surprise. So I'm going to add a jump scare, which lucky for you won't work on you anymore since you're watching this video, and I'm about to walk you through the entire jump scare. First, to get your nerves running, I made this sound that crossfades into a scarier and scarier version to build tension as you approach this room. And then you see what looks like to be a dead body. Fuck, I'm already demonetized. But yeah, laying there is an unalived individual, but as you approach, he wakes up. Now, in other horror games, they psych you out. I remember one of the first horror games I played off itch.io, you could see like shadows in the distance of something peeking out from a corner, and that freaked me out. You see the same thing in those like fake abandoned school videos where they have like someone in a window or something, so I made our guy do that. And this is so cool. Another scary thing is seeing flashlights in the distance, especially in these tunnels. Because when you look at the flashlight, you have no way of telling who or what is behind that light because it's just so bright.
What the f? Yo!
And that's so awesome. So earlier in the game, I made Bob sort of walk around with the flashlight, far away from corners. And I think that's a good way to introduce him to the player. And this is already coming together pretty nicely. Leave ideas in the comments and sub for more videos about Bob chasing you around tunnels. Peace.